Hey, what's going on? This is the Body Punch Podcast, and my name is Naz. Let's talk about UFC 267. UFC 267 is coming down this weekend. And in my opinion, it's one of those low-key fight cards that if you're in the know, you will know that this is a packed card with some special fights on it. You can already see with Embedded and some of the other media around UFC 267 that they're trying to hype it as much as possible. They're going back to Abu Dhabi Fight Island, aka Fight Island. And the main event is going to be Jan Błachowicz versus Glover Teixeira for the 205 strap. We also got Petr Yan versus Cory Sandhagen for the 135 belt. We got Dan Hooker being a late replacement and someone to take on the phenom Islam Makhachev. That's one of those fights that has that lore behind it. It has that just it factor behind it. We also got a heavyweight fight, Marcin Tybura taking on Alexander Volkov. That's going to be a special one. Then we got Khamzat Chimaev coming back versus Jangeling. Man, I'm just looking at this card, and this is so stacked. And there hasn't been much hype. I know it's early in the week. I'm recording this very early in the week. This fight is going to be this weekend, October 30th. But just looking at some of these fights, Magomed Ankalaev versus Volkov, Uzdemir, No Time is coming back. Like, we're talking about Uzdemir here, a person that fought for that belt, versus Ankalaev, who has had almost a cult following now. People love the way that he fights. And then for the prelim main event, we got Amanda Ribas coming back. She's always a fun fighter to watch. She's always so exciting. And just even looking at the prelim fights, some of these fighters on this card, man, this one is super stacked. And I think they're doing this because they're coming back to Fight Island. They want to start with a bang. The couple fight cards that were there before, the ones that we just had previously, weren't as stacked as these ones. I think they were loading up these ones. These are the ones where not many fighters have fallen off. We still have a week to go, so I'm gonna try and not jinx this one. But I think what happened in the fight cards before, there was a lot of fights that fell off. There was a lot of fights that were planned to happen, but they never did. And but UFC 267 here, with all of these amazing fights coming down, is just going to be something special. Now, let's start with, this is going to be one of those longer podcasts, but I want to start from Ankalaev versus Uzdemir. Uzdemir has that power at 205. He kind of got stopped at one point in his career, and what ended up happening was, I think there was at one point he was just rolling through his competition. I'm just looking at his record right now. He's beaten guys like Ilir Latifi by KO, that fire hydrant of a man, Ilir Latifi, who at one point was fighting at it and might be still fighting at heavyweight. He won against Alexander Rakic, split decision win. Those two fights were in 2019. His last fight was against Prochazka, who's the phenom of 2020. And he lost by KO punch. But at one point, Uzdemir was just on a massive roll, and then he got stopped by Daniel Cormier in 2018 and lost by TKO punches at UFC 220. And that's where I kind of saw the upper echelon of fighters at 205 kind of had their way with Uzdemir, because after that fight we got Anthony Smith, who submitted him, then Dominic Reyes. Those are all three guys. One of them was champion. Both Dominic Reyes and Anthony Smith fought for that belt against John Jones. Anthony Smith fought against the current champion, Jan Błachowicz, got knocked out in that one, brutal knockout. But those are the top of the food chain fighters in that 205-pound division. While he was on that run, he was still facing really good fighter like OSP, Jimmy Manawa, who he defeated by KO punches. So that run wasn't just a fluke. Even very early in his career, he was just he went 10-0 until he lost his first fight against Kelly, and he lost that one by submission. But we got to see if No Time can come back here and face a really game Ankalaev, who's on an amazing run. He's won 15 and only lost one, and he's been climbing that ranking ever so slightly. And the last couple fights that he's had have just brought him closer and closer. He had that 2 fights against Cutelaba. The first one he won because the referee thought that Cutelaba was knocked out, but he was actually playing possum. And then he had to fight him again just to make it right. So those are 2 fights in 2020 that took up his time. Then he won his last fight by unanimous decision. That was in 2021. That was under UFC Fight Night, Rosenstrike versus Gane. So that was a pretty recent one that just happened. But he's slowly been climbing the rankings at 205. His only loss was against Paul Craig, who Paul Craig is just doing some amazing stuff at this division, submitting everyone that he could see. Paul Craig has been on a massive run. And he's no joke in this division. So I think that for both of these fighters, Ankalaev and Volkan, this is must win for different reasons. Volkov, he's got to show that he's still got it. Ankalaev has got to get that big scalp on his record and show everybody that he belongs in this division. Now let's talk about the next one. Khamzat Chimaev versus Li Jingling. And this is one that is a tricky one to even hedge your bets on, to put money on. Because you got this guy who's won 9 of his matches, and 3 of them by submission, 6 of them by knockout. And he's just been going through the competition. Now, has it been high-level competition early in his career? His first fight in the UFC was on the Calvin Kattar versus Ige card, where he submitted John Phillips. His big name on his record is Gerald Mershaw, but he talks a big game. And his last win was in 2020. So he had COVID. He got a brutal case of COVID that took him out for a little while. Then there was other issues that plagued him and left him on the sidelines for some time. At one point, even saying that he was retired. So how would that affect him in a fight with, I think this is going to be the biggest name on his record, because this is someone in Lee who's fought the best of the best, and one of them being Neil Magny. Even though he lost that one by unanimous decision, that's still someone that's at the top of the food chain, can put a pace on you, can strike with you, can take you to the ground, and it's just one of those tough outs. His last fight was in 2021. He beat Ponzinibbio, big name, someone that has that power, and went up against him and knocked him out. So this is gonna be a big stick. This is gonna be big measuring stick for us to see where Shumaev is, and if he can get a win against Lee, it's gonna be something big, especially for being on a layoff like he has been on. The time he's been away from the sport, it's gonna be tough to get that cage time. It's not even possible to get that cage time without being in the cage. So for him, I'm very interested to see what happens with him. Now, one of the biggest stories on this card is Dan Hooker versus Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev being one of those Khabib Nurmagomedov disciples. Dan Hooker coming off his last win against at UFC 266, and that was only in September. In September 2021, he fought in Las Vegas, and due to restrictions in New Zealand, he has to stay in stateside. He trained out in the States, and now he has to fly all the way to Abu Dhabi, which is what I've said on this podcast constantly. That flight all the way out there is a tough one if you're not used to it. There was a lot of fighters doing that cross the world flight for the first time, and haven't had to deal with such a drastic time change, especially in a little while. Being sat down due to COVID, and then having to fly across the world and to fight someone else is really tough. Dan Hooker took a different approach when he came from New Zealand to the States. When he came for his last fight against Nasser, he took a very different approach of what I've seen compared to other fighters that have been on Fight Island, which was to just remain on his normal New Zealand clock, wake up whenever he wants to wake up, but make sure that he's ready and fully capable of giving his best output during fight time. So whatever time he had to fight, he would make sure that would be his peak, but fall asleep and wake up whenever he wanted. There was no adjustment period or nothing like that. And for his last fight, I almost totally forgot to say this, but it was super short notice. It was one of those that he just took, and it was a big decision for him because of all the issues, getting his visa, not being able to see his family for a year because he's basically locked out of his country. It was a big decision for him, and it probably, and I bet, took a lot of mental. It must have taken a big toll on his mental, because knowing that you're basically locked out of your own country, and he has one of the biggest tests of his career against Islam Makhachev. Man, this guy, 20 wins, 3 by knockout, 9 by submission, and then we got 8 by decision. But 20 wins, only 1 loss. And the guy that he lost to, he got knocked out. He got knocked out in the first round. And then after that, he went on a tear again. If we look at his record, it's not the deepest. There's some names on here like Drew Dober, and what he did to Drew Dober was very special, because we all know the cardio machine Drew Dober is, and then what a tough fight for anybody in this division. Drew Dober is not someone that you're supposed to mess with. Not many people, I think, want to take that fight because he doesn't have the biggest name, and this is Drew Dober that I'm talking about, but he can give you one of the toughest fights in the UFC. Then he fought Thiago Moises, and if we just look at his if you look at his record, like I said, it's not that deep, and Dan Hooker is going to be the biggest test for him. So I think many people are thinking that Islam Makhachev is just going to run him over, run Dan Hooker over. But if we look at what Dan Hooker's done and the type of fights that he's had, and we're talking about fighting Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, Paul Felder, Ali Quinta, James Vick, Edson Barboza, Gilbert Burns, Jim Miller, and just that list, Yair Rodriguez, um, just that list of fighters that Dan Hooker has faced. He has faced the cream of the crop. And I think this is more of a test for Islam Makhachev than it is for Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's been in this position. He's fought in main events. He's done what's needed to be done. And for him to come in this fight, and I think a lot of people are writing him off, like I said before, might not be the best thing to, let me just say it like this. Just look at both of their records. I know one's 20-1, and the other one might have less fights and less wins, but just look at the caliber of fights that they've had. You can have an amazing record and all that kind of stuff, but the person that has had these upper echelon fights, say what you want about Conor McGregor, say what you want about maybe even Tony Ferguson. I'm trying to think of other fighters, but those fighters that have faced the top of the food chain in that division, are they really losing a step? Maybe. But I think more of what it is that they're facing the top, and then when you get Conor and he faces Cowboy Cerrone, who, mind you, before Conor and Cowboy fought, he fought Ali Quinta. Ali Quinta is a very tough fight. Cowboy went in there with Conor McGregor and he got stopped, devastatingly quickly, and we all remember what happened there. What I'm trying to say is it's not about the wins and the losses sometimes. It's about who they are fighting. It's about who they're fighting, and Dan Hooker is fighting the best of the best. Let's talk about the next fight, Cory Sandhagen versus Petr Yan. This is for that 135 pound belt. This is going to be an amazing fight. I think it's going to be an amazing striking display, even if it goes to the ground. We've seen Petr Yan have some great wrestling, have some great takedown defense. Cory Sandhagen, if it goes to the ground, I bet you he's got something to show us there. But I think this is going to be an amazing striking affair. This fight, the funny thing about it is that the main reason that it's happening is because that 135 pound belt, it has been almost this is for that interim title, and this is for that interim title. I think I was saying it was for the belt, but it's not actually for the belt. It's hard to remember when Sterling has been out for a little while, even though he's been out the same time as Petr Yan. It's just that he's had these ongoing neck issues, and I think it's something that for sure you can't say Aljamain. You can't say anything bad about Aljamain. He did win the belt by that DQ knee that Petr Yan hit him with, which I think was inexcusable. He should have known what was happening in the moment. It doesn't really matter if you're corner or if you think you should kind of know the rules. We don't see this too often, so this is not like a major accident that we see all the time, and it's like a mistake that happens all the time, like getting hit below the belt or getting eye poked. This is something that was just a mental lapse, and it was just forgotten about that it's a major rule. If you've been listening to this podcast for a little while, you know how much of a fan I am of Petr Yan, so don't take what I'm saying as something like bashing him. I'm a massive fan of Petr Yan. I love the way that he fights. So aggressive, just comes in there with that, just covers up, almost like Justin Gaethje style, but throws such accurate punches, and amazing leg kicks. And the fight with Jose Aldo, the way that he took out Jose Aldo, and what Jose Aldo has done after that fight. Some people said that fight shows that Jose Aldo might be at the end of his career, but what Jose Aldo did after that, by fighting Pedro Munoz and Marlon Vera, just shows that he's still at the top. He's fighting big name guys, and for Petr Yan to do what he did against Jose Aldo was spectacular. Uriah Faber, I remember that one. That was brutal. That was one of the ones that Uriah Faber, he's kind of he retired and came back, but what Petr Yan showed me in that fight was the calculated angles, and it looked like he had like a protractor or a ruler out there. He looked like he was doing all the measurements in his head, quick time, and he's so quick and fast. And you know what I've always noticed is that he's got such big mitts on him that cover his whole face, and he's able to, and he's so brutal with everything he throws. You can see that he really enjoys it. He really enjoys getting after guys and going in that fire. So this is going to be an amazing fight. Cory Sandhagen, we all know what he's done in his career. Last fight was against TJ Dillashaw. Split decision. Some people saw that Sandhagen won, but Dillashaw won that one. He suffered an ACL injury, if I'm not mistaken, some sort of leg injury. He was taken out of that fight. He was taken out of this fight. People were saying that he might fight Petr Yan next. But now it's going to be Cory Sandhagen. And there's no one else that you could put in his place. There's no one else aside from Cory Sandhagen that should take this place. This is a guy that's beaten Frankie Edgar, flying knee knockout. That was spectacular. Marlon Moraes, that spinning wheel kick. That was amazing. He did lose to Aljamain Sterling, who is the champion right now. But that was such a quick submission, rear naked choke. They're all dry. It was the first round. And who knows what a second fight would look like between those two. This is a guy that's fought John Lineker. There's other big names on his record. But those two, spectacular knockouts against Frankie Edgar and Marlon Moraes just put that exclamation mark, that sprinkle on his career almost. So let's get to the big one, the 205-pound belt. Jan Błachowicz, he's going to be fighting Glover Teixeira. I never would have thought that I would be saying this, but these two fighters have just been putting on this amazing performance later in their careers. Winning against Israel Adesanya, I don't know, like we're not putting that much of a exclamation mark on that. We're not putting that much notice on that. What he did to one of the rising stars, one of the stars of the UFC in Israel Adesanya, to defeat him unanimous decision, UFC 259 in 2021. I think we're just forgetting how spectacular that was. The way that he was able to mute what Israel Adesanya does so amazing. A lot of people are just putting it on the weight that Błachowicz was so much bigger than Adesanya. But I don't think it was just that. I think it was just he's seen that before. He does have a striking background. He's seen feints like that before. And for him to do what he did against the style bender in that fight was amazing, and it was crazy to watch, because to be honest, a lot of people just thought that Stylebender was just going up there and he was about to take that belt, and he just waited until John Jones was gone, and he thought that this was a perfect opportunity for him to get that 205 belt, a pound belt, and to be the double champ of those two divisions. But also, we got to remember that the 185 to 200 jump, there's not many people, and even I'm thinking in the lower division, in the other organizations that have had that double champ, between the 185 and the 205. I think there has been the 170 to 185, but not the 205 to not the 205 to 185. But you look at Błachowicz John's career, his last fight, it was Adesanya, then Dominic Reyes. He TKO'd him. It was a knockout in that one, and from what I remember, yeah, I think it was a knockout. Yeah, it was classified as a TKO, but he hit him real flush and took him out nice and quick. That was in 2020. That was on Fight Island. He's used to fighting on Fight Island. I think that's a big thing. That's something that I wanted to bring up with Sandhagen and Petr Yan and some of the other fights on the card. These are people that are getting used to flying all the way to Abu Dhabi, no matter where they're coming from, either Vegas or some other part of the country, and they're getting used to fighting in Fight Island. And then before Dominic Reyes, he fought Corey Anderson, who's doing amazing things in Bellator. You can still see that he's no joke. He's not someone that you should be worried about, or you should be worried about Corey Anderson. Super worried about Corey Anderson, and for Błachowicz to knock him out in that one, and it was a pretty bad knockout after that one. That's where Anderson had a bunch of issues where he fell flat on his face on concrete. He was in and out of the hospital, I believe. It caused a lot of issues for Anderson. And then he had another fight after that. Then he had that Luke Rockhold fight, where people thought Luke would just annihilate him, but that was not the case. Luke got knocked out, and he bulked up for that fight. He got nice and big for that one, and he still got knocked out, and it was crazy to see because the decorated, or not the, he's not like super decorated, but the caliber of striker that Luke Rockhold is, and for Jean to knock him out like that it was just crazy. Thiago Santos, and he lost in that one. He's fought Jimmy Manoa, and the list goes on and on and on. And you look at his career, and it's been again, it's been with the people at the top. Not many people on his resume that you wouldn't be nervous about fighting. They're top caliber fighters, especially, obviously they're all in the UFC and they're all top caliber, but top of that division. And then we look at Glover's record, and Glover has been just doing the damn thing. 32 wins, 7 losses. At the beginning of his UFC career, having visa issues and not being able to come, and then coming later in his fighting career, and now at the age that he's at, which is let me just get the exact age. At the age of 41, He's defeated Thiago Santos, which was in 2020, Anthony Smith, May of 2020, and then Kutilaba. He lost to Corey Anderson, Misha Serkinov in 2017. But at the age of 41, he's still doing it. And he's fought, I think the theme of this podcast is just what is not about your record. It's about who's on your record. And we're talking about guys like Anthony Joshua that he's fought against, even though it was a loss. Gustafsson, even though it was a loss. Corey Anderson, it was a loss. John Jones, Phil Davis. He's fought Rashad Evans, OSP. Just the list goes on and on and on. Just these top caliber fighters that Glover has faced has just been, his resume is just amazing. And I think these two fighting is just, it's crazy to say. October 2021, Glover Teixeira and Jan Błachowicz are going to be fighting for the 205 belt. It's not just the age, it's not just the records that they've had. It's because John Jones has left the division. It's thriving a lot more. It's given a lot of breathing room for these fighters to develop. And now we got this. We got the best of the best in their older age. Glover being 41, and Błachowicz is not that old, but he doesn't. I think it has a lot to do with English being his second language. He's such a nice guy. It's just so unexpected. I think that's the main thing for me. He's such a nice guy from what I can see from YouTube and his interviews and the podcasts that he's done. He's such a unassuming fighter. But this is the guy that walks around with a noose of a person that committed suicide and made like a bracelet out of it, and has been knocking people out like Luke Rockhold in devastating fashion, and all of these fighters. I think this is going to be a great card. I think this is going to be one of those ones that you can't miss. I think this is also going to be those ones that if you're going to share this with your non-MMA fan friends, this is one that you got to invite them over, or you got to either just tell them about it, that they have to watch this one, especially in the main event, even the prelims, like I mentioned before, Amanda Ribas, and even some of these other fights on this prelim. You cannot miss these. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. If you could like, subscribe, hit the bell notification on YouTube, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about these fights. If you can listen to the podcast on the different podcast networks, that'd be highly appreciated. Leave a review. Leave your questions on the review page as well. Hit 5 stars, all that good stuff. It's on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere that you listen to podcasts. You can listen to the Body Punch podcast. I really appreciate it. I really thank you for taking your time out of your day and listening to me talk about this amazing fight card. Thanks again. This has been the Body Punch podcast. My name is Naz. Bye.